Hello, fellow creators. Today I want to walk you through how I pick up old bed sheets at the thrift store and turn them into fabric yarn for our upcycling projects. It's fun, creative, and most importantly, it's sustainable. So let's dive in. There are a couple of major reasons why I love repurposing thrift store sheets into fabric yarn. First, sustainability. Textiles, including bed sheets, pillowcases, and towels, make up a significant portion of what ends up in U.S. landfills. A report from the National Institute of Standards and Technology noted that only about 15% of used textiles in the U.S. are reused or recycled, meaning about 85% go to landfill or incineration. That's not great. So by grabbing a thrift store sheet and turning it into fabric yarn, we are keeping linens out of the landfill, giving the fabric a second, third, fourth life, and reducing waste. But also, it's economical. Thrift store sheets are often inexpensive if you get the right ones, and you get a lot of fabric for your dollar. That means if you're making fabric yarn for bags, rugs, decor, anything else, you're getting big value. Save money and save the environment? Win-win. All right, let's actually talk about some sheets here. Size matters. The size of the sheet is going to determine what kind of project you can do. Sheets come in standard sizes, of course, twin, full, queen, king, flat sheets, and fitted sheets. If your project needs a lot of yarn, you'll want to consider grabbing a larger size, for example, a king, or maybe a full set, because you'll have more fabric to cut and convert into yarn. Also note, fitted sheets can result in less usable yardage because you'll have to cut off those corners and those elasticized bits. And you might waste more fabric in the shaping. So if you find a flat sheet in a large size, that can be often better for making yarn. Basically, the bigger the sheet and the flatter the sheet, the more yarn you'll likely end up with. Next up, of course, is price. This is an important factor. I've seen some thrift stores, you know who you are, raise the prices on used linens so high that it almost defeats the purpose of thrifting them for upcycling. I totally understand if it's a premium, high-quality set or designer linen, but when every used sheet is the same price regardless of the quality, that is frustrating. So my tip, look for thrift stores that keep sheet prices manageable, for example, under $5 or whatever works in your local area. The goal is to keep your costs low so your upcycling projects remain cost-efficient and so that you'll buy more of thrift store sheets, of course. If you walk into a store and a simple used flat sheet is $12+, like some of the stores in my area, then it may not be worth it compared to buying new or fabric remnants. Always compare the price and yield, how much fabric you'll get, and the quality, of course. Which brings us to the quality. Quality doesn't mean you need brand new pristine linens, far from it. What matters is how the fabric will behave when you turn it into yarn. Ask yourself, does it have a lot of pilling or fuzz? Are there holes, thin spots, severe stains that will compromise the project? Feel the sheet with your hands. Does it feel okay? That being said, even a not so great fabric can make pretty good yarn. The hero here is repurposing. So don't stress if it's not perfect. You'll want to avoid something so worn out that it falls apart when you cut it. But in short, pick something you like the feel of, something you're comfortable turning into yarn. Now let's talk color. This might surprise some people, but color is something I now pay a lot of attention to, and I didn't always. But because when you turn a sheet into yarn, the color of the yarn really comes through in your finished projects. I love rich jewel tones, emeralds, deep purple, sapphires. And I also love when the fabric has a subtle shimmer or texture to it. So when I'm thrifting, I'm scanning for those colors. Side note, brighter and more saturated colors can be harder to find in thrift sheets. On the other hand, neutral grays, whites, beiges are everywhere. But if you want color, you might have to dig a little bit. So this tip, go in with an eye for color or texture that will look great when converted to yarn and used in your project. Along with color, we need to talk about prints. Sheets with prints can make really interesting fabric yarn, but there are a few things to keep in mind. Because you're converting the fabric into yarn and likely into something else, a bag, a rug, you won't necessarily see the print in the final piece the way you saw it as a sheet. So you're buying it for the fabric and the pattern feel rather than expecting a precise pictorial print to come through. So I kind of scrunch it up to see what it might look like after I've been crocheting with it. You also want to check the back side of the printed sheet. If the back is much more faded than the front, then the print might not translate well into yarn. You might get a muddy or uneven look. If the back is nearly as vibrant as the front, that's a good sign. For example, I found a yellow and white striped sheet, and I didn't know at the time that when we crocheted it into a bag, it would look a lot like corn on the cob. Yes, corn on the cob. Funny stuff, right? So don't shy away from prints, but inspect them, feel them, check them for both sides, and imagine what the yarn made from it might look like. All right, let's talk consistency here. I don't expect to walk into every thrift store and find the perfect sheet. Sometimes I find nothing. Other times I might spot 5 or more good candidates. The trick is to go regularly enough that you uncover the gems. Set a rhythm. Maybe once a week or bi-weekly, pop into your local thrift store with your eyes open. Over time, you'll get familiar with which stores tend to have better prices, better linens, and you'll instinctively spot the good finds. But don't get discouraged if you walk in once and don't find anything that day. It's just part of the game. So to wrap up, here's my checklist for what I look for when I'm thrifting sheets to convert into fabric yarn. Rich jewel tone colors or interesting prints with decent fabric on both sides. A larger size sheet if possible. King flat sheet is my preferred if I can find it. I prefer a single flat sheet over a full high-end set because I want to avoid buying something someone else might actually want to use as a sheet. For price, I try to keep it under $5 or whatever works in the local market. Quality is not my highest requirement, but a fabric that feels good and is sturdy enough with no giant holes or rips is ideal. And prints, yes, but I check both sides to imagine how the yarn will look. And I visit stores regularly. I make it a habit. And I don't live in a town that has any thrift stores, so that means I'm going in when I hit the big city. So that's my habit. Go to the big city, check out the thrift store. My mother and I love making something repurposed and upcycled. It's not just about the finished bag or rug. It's about turning something that might have been tossed in the landfill into something creative, useful, and beautiful. Thanks for coming along on this thrifting adventure with us. If you liked this, hit that button, subscribe for more upcycling and craft videos. Lovebird and Yaya.